The Wrestling Observer, in particular Dave Meltzer, has been promising for years that we're about to see a big, huge, colossal dream match the likes of which the WWE has never seen. I am of course referring to the rumoured match at Wrestlemania between The Rock and Roman Reigns, which the Wrestling Observer is also very clear is not going to happen. They've been pushing this ever since the Roman Reigns' return at SummerSlam in 2020 and his subsequent championship win at Payback. I'm going to go over all of the reports from Wrestling Observer and subsidiaries thereof, stating The Rock versus Roman Reigns is happening, and also stating The Rock versus Roman Reigns is not happening. Because this narrative that's been created is feeding into a system whereby the Wrestling Observer profits massively and fans go home disappointed. I'm going to use as my main source the Wrestling Observer itself, starting with The Rock being confirmed for WWE SmackDown's Fox premiere. This goes before Roman Reigns because I want to set the actual tone of the narrative here and how the Wrestling Observer is using The Rock to generate publicity. This essentially is me setting the standard of the publication. This is standard journalism. I myself reported that The Rock and Becky Lynch would be working together on this first show, and it did really help catapult my career. But when it comes to moments like this is the standard journalism that we should expect. We're going to be following up with plenty more that goes beyond the pale. Next up, we follow with WWE hoping for a Rock appearance at Brooklyn hosted Survivor Series June 11th, 2021. This is when we start the build to Rock versus Roman Reigns apparently happening forever. My immediate question mark for this particular report is a paragraph here. A Reigns-Rock match has been rumoured for quite some time, and Meltzer said that if Rock does come back, he'll want to set a box office record with Dallas's AT&T Stadium and Los Angeles SoFi Stadium as the two venues where that could happen. They do not in any way refer to those rumours as where they have come from, but a little further up, let's see, Meltzer and Andrew Zarian first reported one of WWE's Big Four to be headed to Brooklyn, with Dave Meltzer adding in this week's Wrestling Observer, WWE hopes to bring in the 49-year-old pop culture megastar for an appearance that would lead to something bigger. Get familiar with the name Andrew Zarian and Dave Meltzer because they're going to be very important for this particular video and all of these reports that hover around them. The original report that Rock would be part of Survivor Series came from Matt Men's Andrew Zarian, and they do refer to him as Matt Men's Andrew Zarian, despite the fact he actively works for the Wrestling Observer, as you will see shortly. I also think the picture that they've chosen is very telling. What this picture was historically used for is as an embarrassment to Roman Reigns and to The Rock, because The Rock was not prepared for the pure scale of hatred that Roman Reigns and himself would receive after that Royal Rumble win. A couple of months later, and The Rock is addressing the Roman Reigns versus The Rock WrestleMania match, despite the fact that no match was ever actually brought forward. And this is one of the reasons that you're going to see reports about, for example, The Rock versus Roman Reigns. Because after that, the narrative has been set. The Wrestling Observer has said it's probably going to happen. So wrestling journalists start asking questions of The Rock, start asking questions of Roman Reigns, basically telling them you need to endorse this so that we know what's going on. As with Shawn Michaels being asked about CM Punk to NXT recently, it starts to feel like people are actually saying this without prompting. It's not without prompting. The Rock is being specifically asked a question here. He's not saying, you know, I'd love to wrestle Roman Reigns. It's also not exactly fitting with what the Wrestling Observer were looking for. They were stating that The Rock would be appearing at Survivor Series, likely in a build towards a match with Roman Reigns. And here he is, in an interview with Andrew Freund of Dish Nation. The Rock stated there was no truth to the rumour that he would face the WWE Universal Champion. In similar interview with comicbook.com, Johnson did not rule out another match, but said that any in-ring scenario would have to make sense. This is a very clear The Rock saying this isn't happening. Now, I know I haven't given you the full context yet, but I promise you it's coming. 14 days after The Rock declared that, and it was reported in the Wrestling Observer, an account claiming that it's Matt Men, of course, Matt Men's Andrew Zarian, working for the Wrestling Observer, this very much confirms that, says that The Rock was originally planned for a Survivor Series appearance. So after initially reporting that WWE were trying to get him in for Survivor Series, and him saying it wasn't in any way to build towards Roman Reigns, the Wrestling Observer are now reporting via the Wrestling Observer that The Rock was in fact planned for Survivor Series, and you know what? The Wrestling Observer are telling you that the Wrestling Observer got it right. Let's go into some detail of this, starting with a saying by Andrew Zarian for F4W Online. For those who don't know, F4W is the Wrestling Observer. Sunday's WWE Survivor Series was originally supposed to feature Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and for anyone watching last night, it was blatantly obvious that was the plan. Stuff like that always confuses me. Because you're stating fact and then saying, you all know it though, don't you? You know he was supposed to be there because you're smart and smart people know. And if you're not smart, you didn't think he was going to be there, and don't you want to be the smart person? It's too prevalent in media in general. This was written directly by Andrew Zarian, so it is largely in first person. In July, I was told that the Brooklyn, New York pay-per-view would be centered around Johnson. Between heavily promoting his new Red Notice movie on Netflix, good film, I quite enjoyed it, the 25th anniversary of his WWE debut that took place in New York City, NBC's renewal of Young Rock, sadly Young Rock has been cancelled since, and the second season of the Ruthless Aggression documentary series, the timing was perfect. Yet another source informed me that there were hopes for Johnson to be on Monday's Raw, dependent on his schedule. I personally didn't see this as happening. Let's read what it actually says here, okay? In July, I was told the pay-per-view would be centered around Johnson. The timing was perfect. Another source informed me they'd hoped he'd be on Raw. At no point in this do they state what they actually said a bit further up. Sunday's WWE Survivor Series was originally supposed to feature Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. No source has told them that by their own admission. This is also where it starts to go pear-shaped, because in typical Wrestling Observer style, they've said at the top he was supposed to be at Survivor Series, and now, in late September, the same source told me that Johnson would not be on Survivor Series due to his filming schedule and needed to quarantine for travel. However, there was still a financial obligation to continue the plan for the movie promotion without Johnson, which is what we saw last night. The basic concept stayed the same, minus Johnson himself. In many ways, it could be as simple as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson taking out a sponsorship and encouraging the WWE, with whom he's worked for many, many years, to promote one of his films. But no, a source is very clear. He was going to be there, and also, he wasn't going to be there. Once again, I understand if you think we're not exactly creating a perfect circle of evidence here, but bear with me, because this is the beginning of plenty more times when someone at the Wrestling Observer would report that it was happening and that it wasn't happening. Little fun one to touch on, fast forward to April 13th, 2022, after WrestleMania 38 when The Rock did not appear. Young Rock teases The Rock vs Roman Reigns WWE WrestleMania match. The writers of Young Rock do not decide what the main event of WrestleMania is, just going to throw that out there. We now get to the point when it's become a focal point, a topic of discussion for pretty much everyone involved. Roman Reigns on facing The Rock at WWE WrestleMania. If it works out, then I'm ready. Reigns addressed taking on The Rock on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast. So Logan Paul is asking the questions of Roman Reigns, are you taking on The Rock? Of course, the first we heard about this match was from the Wrestling Observer, so they are feeding this narrative and making this happen. In many ways, I feel we also have to point out there's a lot of fan interest in this. It's being fanned by the flames of Wrestling Observer, encouraging them to believe that the WWE is giving them this match, and if they don't, the WWE is letting them down. Roman Reigns himself, typically nonplussed by the whole situation. They keep trying, everybody keeps trying on this one, said Reigns. Note that he's not referring to WWE here. I don't book the show, bro, I'm up for anybody. If it works out, then I'm ready. Nice and simple response. As is typical of people being asked these questions, they stay very non-committal, and Roman Reigns is pretty much Prince non-committal in some of these interviews. Roman Reigns might have responded to this. The Rock himself also responded on October 11th, 2022, the build to Survivor Series that year. The Rock comments on a potential Roman Reigns WWE WrestleMania match. He was asked about the match on his Black Adam press tour, so it wasn't technically even actually directly involved with wrestling. Johnson spoke to ease the rundown on the press tour. When asked who the head of the table is, Johnson said it's him. Who is the head of the table? Without saying any names, you look into his eyes right now, Johnson said. Johnson was asked if that means he's confirming he'll challenge Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship at WrestleMania 39 next April. I am not confirming that at all. No, I am not, Johnson responded, though I'm going to get a text from him after he watches this. Media in general have now caught on to this idea that the WWE are giving us this match. At no point has the WWE given us any indication that they are giving us this match. In fact, the only indication from anyone so far that it's happening originates with the Wrestling Observer. This is putting the Wrestling Observer and the WWE directly at odds. There is a problem here in that wrestling media is essentially attempting to book shows for WWE and encouraging a fandom to demand more than has been offered. This does create problems, and you will see that certain wrestling media outlets will have a fan base who simply are never particularly happy with the product that they're being given. Why? Because they've been promised a different one. Also in October 2022, The Rock and Nick Khan have talked about future WWE involvement. Dwayne Johnson hinted at possibly some things in his future. We have seen The Rock, of course, recently, and this might also cover the Red Notice film promotion, though that is not the implication that comes from this article. The Rock said, "I love the wrestling business. I grew up in it. My grandfather, my dad started here in Canada, where he was born. So I'm not quite too sure if a board seat is in my future, but possibly other things are in my future for sure." While he's been out of the ring for years, speculation has been that one of the things in his future is a match of undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns at next year's Wrestlemania at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. To be clear, where's that speculation coming from, Wrestling Observer? You're writing about this, you're saying there's speculation. What's your source for that speculation? Are you saying fan speculation? Because you're not saying that. Who has fueled this speculation? Who are you forgetting to mention? Because the majority of this speculation comes directly from the Wrestling Observer. We then move on to the rumour killer. Reports came out claiming that Dave Meltzer had stated that The Rock would be featuring at the Royal Rumble, potentially to pick up the win and take on Roman Reigns that way. Instead, on January 20th, they reported an update on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's status for WrestleMania 39. Johnson is considered less likely for WrestleMania than he was a few months ago. There is one thing in particular I need to highlight here. Meltzer wrote that unless Johnson changes his mind in the next few days, Johnson has indicated that he won't have time to get into the kind of shape he feels he needs to be in for a main event match against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39. Meltzer noted that Johnson has kept the door open for something in the future. Here's the line I want you to focus on. Of course, it is a possibility that it's something being kept a secret from everyone, Meltzer added. Essentially making it clear that, hey, they might still be right, and hey, the WWE might still be letting you down. The report also states that while Meltzer doesn't know that Johnson has officially turned down wrestling, the indication is that it's considered less likely than a few months ago. How can he turn down something that hasn't actually been offered? To my knowledge, and I reported this many times around this point, there has never been a match planned between The Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. More on that to come as well. Following up on January 28th, Roman Reigns addresses The Rock/WWE WrestleMania rumours on Tonight's Show. The Tonight Show are now following up reporting from the Wrestling Observer. Reigns said, "There's been a huge buzz on that for a long time now, but it's really picked up in the last couple of years. I wonder why. I believe he just came out with a statement saying he's not going to be ready in time," which that's the kind of face everyone's making, like, hold on, this guy trains every single day. He's huge. He's a pretty big dude, to be fair. Reigns noted there's a difference, however, between physically looking in shape and conditioning your body to take bumps ahead of a high-profile main event match. That's number one, Dwayne, Reigns teased. When you're going up against Roman Reigns, you better get ready to fall down. They quote Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer as a source for what Roman Reigns is referring to. Final follow-up for this one, January 29th, Triple H tries to calm the fandom down, tries to make it clear that if you're expecting The Rock, you're going to be disappointed. Triple H on The Rock at WrestleMania, I just don't think it's in the cards. WWE's Chief Creative Officer addressed the possibility of The Rock appearing at WrestleMania 39 at the Royal Rumble press conference. Speaking at the Royal Rumble press conference following Saturday's event, Triple H was asked about whether or not The Rock would be appearing at WrestleMania 39 at SoFi Stadium. "He can't get in shape in time, that's what you all tell me," Levesque joked before answering the question in earnest. "He's incredibly busy. There's a part of him that if he could be here for this WrestleMania in Hollywood, he would turn over every stone and walk through fire to be able to do it. I just don't think it's in the cards." This is one of those things where shortly after this, in fact very recently, The Rock said that there was a plan for this match, and yet everyone at the time, including The Rock, is saying that there wasn't. I do find it interesting that these things change so rapidly. Then again, of course, it's the Wrestling Observer that made famous the phrase, "plans change." We get now to the effect this is having on wrestlers, and there's a really quick turnaround here, so keep an eye out for it. Cody Rhodes, who won the Royal Rumble and was actually going to be taking on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, says current WWE stories are even better than The Rock at WrestleMania. Now, I'm going to give you the actual quote here because it's going to be important. During an interview with the Daily Mail published Monday, he said storylines happening with WWE's current roster are more appealing than bringing back the Great One. Rhodes said, "With all the respect in the world to one of the GOATs, The Rock, it looks like the options we have here within the roster are even better because of the stories that are happening." Of course, the option that was chosen was Cody Rhodes himself. So he is kind of putting himself over there and helping to build towards a match with Roman Reigns. Shortly afterwards, Cody Rhodes walks back comments on The Rock at WrestleMania 39. They quote the Daily Mail article, However, the 2023 Men's Royal Rumble winner spoke with Sports Illustrated recently and clarified his earlier comments. I said it in a pretty nice way, but I said, hey, all respect to The Rock, I like what we have. But I'm going to walk that one back and I'm going to say if The Rock decides to come to WrestleMania, please. To be clear, I can say with certainty, Cody Rhodes was aware at this point that The Rock would not be appearing at WrestleMania. However, fandom, whipped up into a frenzy saying that they need The Rock, turned on Cody Rhodes a little bit here. And he had to release a statement essentially apologising when he had an opportunity with Sports Illustrated. It's infuriating at times to see things like this happen, but it is unfortunately a very regular occurrence now that the wrestlers themselves, who are actually in the spot that people keep crying out for The Rock for, have to swear fealty to those that came before. Our last few articles is essentially the Wrestling Observer patting themselves on the back and using the opportunity to say that they got this right. The Rock stating on September 15th, WWE WrestleMania 39 match versus Roman Reigns was locked in. To be clear, if that was the case, then the Wrestling Observer, who reported that The Rock wouldn't be ready, Roman Reigns, who was also referring to that, Triple H, who said it wasn't on the cards, certainly seemed surprised by it. The Rock told Pat McAfee on Monday that he met with Vince McMahon and Nick Khan in early 2022 and agreed to face his cousin in SoFi Stadium the following year. However, Rock says he didn't just want to do a match, he wanted to do something unprecedented that would change the industry, but they never nailed down what that would be. So to be clear, he didn't want to just do a match, they never worked out what he was going to do, it was definitely locked in, wasn't it? Yeah, same thing for sure. He says The Rock headlining WrestleMania with Roman Reigns, that was locked in, we were doing it. In the beginning of 2022, Nick Khan, who we know, very good friend for years, he's the man. He was very instrumental in bringing Vince and I together. We all flew to LA, we met, we sat. We started talking about the potential of what this match could be between myself and Roman Reigns headlining WrestleMania at SoFi, and we shook hands and we hugged right there, all three of us at the table, and said, let's do this. I don't know how many times you yourself have set up a meeting with people, friends, and said, let's go do this, and then it never happens. To me, that sounds like that's exactly what happened here. But the Wrestling Observer do take advantage of this. I'm not going to actually play the video here, I'm just going to show it, but the Wrestling Observer Radio, which is a live show that they do, how close were we to The Rock versus Roman Reigns? Dave Meltzer and Garrett Gonzalez discussed The Rock's interview with Pat McAfee, which is another wonderful way that they are making plenty of money, not just on the clickbait of these articles, but also on YouTube clickbait as well. Wrestling media in general is founded on an industry of speculation. That is the main takeaway I'd like you to take from what I'm doing here today and what I've been doing over the last few Sundays. Wrestling media is funded by speculation, and you'll find so many that are actually reporting things knowing that they're not going to be true with the intention of gaining money from the traffic and the traction that they get. We finish on a recent report from October 20th, an update on The Rock's status for WWE WrestleMania 40. Dave Meltzer provides the latest on The Rock's status for WrestleMania. This September, Johnson told the Pat McAfee show that him facing Roman Reigns at 39 was locked in at one point. The match didn't end up happening, but Johnson teased he could potentially work WrestleMania 40 next April. Meltzer confirmed that after Johnson turned down WrestleMania 39. Okay, so now you're saying it was locked in, but he turned it down. How can you turn down something that's locked in? No one is going with the idea that he'll do WrestleMania 40. If he wants a spot, I can't believe WWE would turn him down, but after Johnson turned it down last year, nobody's going with the idea he's doing it this year. So that's where we are. The Wrestling Observer historically has reported on a number of occasions that they are going to see The Rock appearing in WWE, potentially taking on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. The Wrestling Observer is also the foremost reporter that The Rock will not be featuring at WrestleMania, outside of course of myself, who's reported pretty religiously on spoiler warning shows that The Rock and Roman Reigns do not have a match planned in. If you want a sneak preview of the research process that goes into this video, by all means become a channel member and there's a video waiting. Check out the videos on the screen at the moment where we detail how WWE is using CM Punk to sell Survivor Series tickets, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you and goodbye.